Dirty poor people can stay in the hallway. We don't want you in the room.
The clerk, assuming I'm poor just because I'm in work clothes, sneered at us. It made me angry at the rude clerk, but more than that, I was worried that I might have embarrassed Laura because of this. After not seeing each other for 5 years, Laura arranged for a luxury hotel and brought me there. I regretted not changing my clothes. But then, Laura burst out laughing, even louder than the clerk. Her sudden laughter made both the clerk and me freeze with wide eyes. But Laura continued, unfazed by our reactions.
Oh, so this hotel picks customers based on their looks? That's a novel approach. Could you call the manager, please?
The clerk, surprised by Laura's fearless demeanor, went to fetch the manager. When the clerk returned with the manager and introduced us, the manager, recognizing us, started trembling. Then, suddenly, he apologized to us.
I deeply apologize for the rudeness.
I'm Johnny Depp. I'm a 32-year-old construction worker. I have an older sister named Laura, who is 5 years older than me. Our parents died in a car accident right after I was born, so she's my only family. After our parents passed away, Laura and I, still a baby, were taken in by our grandmother. Though our grandmother gladly took us in, she didn't really take care of us. When I cried loudly at night, she'd leave me in another room and go somewhere else. During those times, it was Laura who would put me to sleep. As we grew older, our grandmother had Laura help with the housework. Even as I grew and was more capable, Laura took care of me like a parent. Despite balancing my care, household chores, and schoolwork, Laura never complained. Thanks to Laura, I was able to grow up. I am deeply grateful to Laura. When I was about to graduate from high school, our grandmother also passed away, leaving just Laura and me. Laura encouraged me to go to college, but disliking studying and not wanting to be a burden, I decided to start working immediately. I needed to prove that I could live on my own, so Laura wouldn't have to stay with me forever. Construction work was physically demanding, but it suited me since I was good at learning by doing. The pay wasn't great, but it was enough to get by. I was fortunate to work at a good company with kind people around me. Seeing me settled, Laura seemed a bit lonely. When I turned 27, Laura told me she was getting married. Her fiancé was a man she'd been dating for 2 years. Though I hadn't met him, I trusted Laura's choice and believed he must be a wonderful person. Laura was overjoyed as she talked about moving close to her fiancé's family. At that moment, I understood why Laura had looked so lonely before. While I was happy for her, I couldn't help but feel sad about living apart. Even though it showed on my face, I didn't want to make Laura feel guilty for seeking her happiness. I forced a smile, but Laura might have seen right through it. 2 weeks before the wedding, Laura took me to a luxury hotel. That trip, my first ever, became a wonderful memory. 5 years later, during a hot summer, Laura called me. Hearing her voice after so long made me happy. Laura suggested we visit our parents' graves. Having no memory of my parents since I was a baby, I'd never thought about visiting their graves. But Laura spoke of our parents' kindness and wanted me to pay my respects.
After visiting the graves, let's stay at the hotel we went to before the wedding.
She remembered the luxury hotel from before her marriage. I also remembered how good the food was and how comfortable it felt. That hotel would be a nice place to relax and spend time with Laura. I'm going to end up going after work that day. Is that still okay with you? Unfortunately, I had work even during the summer break, so I had to go after work to match Laura's desired date. I thought it would be fine to go after work. On the day I was supposed to meet Laura, I headed to the hotel in my work clothes to make it on time. Not seeing Laura, I realized I had arrived a bit early. Today, we planned to visit the graves after checking in. Since I arrived early, I thought I might as well check in first, so I went to the front desk, where the clerk frowned. Thinking the clerk was rude, I started filling out the form. While I was writing, the clerk muttered something under his breath.
Smelly.
That one word made me realize my work clothes had an unpleasant smell. Feeling guilty, I apologized to the clerk. I came straight from work, so I must smell. I'm sorry. I apologized, but the clerk just held his nose without saying anything. People can think what they want, but a clerk who doesn't respond when a customer apologizes is something else. The clerk, typing my information into the computer, kept looking between the screen and the form. Seeing this happen repeatedly, I wondered if I had made a mistake. As expected, the clerk came back with the form and told me they couldn't find my reservation.
The reservation was made under someone else's name.
Oh, could it be my sister's name? Oh my, I had written my own name. Laura had made the reservation. I should have used Laura's name. Apologizing for the mistake, I asked if they could check under her name, but the clerk refused.
Excuse me, but you'll have to wait until the person who made the reservation arrives.
I told the clerk the person who made the reservation was my sister, but he didn't believe me. I was getting frustrated with being told over and over that the person who made the reservation had to be there, so I decided to wait for Laura in the lobby. I thought Laura would clear things up when she arrived. Having come straight from work, I was in a terrible mood. Last time, just saying my name was enough to check in, but maybe their system had changed. I had expected the same service as before, but the terrible service made me regret coming. If this had been my first time, I would never come back. An hour later, Laura arrived. Seeing her for the first time in 5 years, she seemed even more beautiful.
If you arrived first, you could have checked in for us.
I couldn't do it with my name. If I could do that, I would. I explained that they wouldn't let me check in without the person who made the reservation, and Laura tilted her head in confusion.
I made the reservation under your name, Johnny.
I couldn't believe it when Laura said she made the reservation under my name. I was confused by this unbelievable fact. Why couldn't they check me in under my name? What was all that fuss about earlier? Angry, I headed back to the front desk with Laura. The same male clerk who had checked my reservation was still there. I quickly checked his name tag. It said Keith. From his appearance, it was clear he wasn't a newbie. Maybe he didn't make a mistake but intentionally decided I wasn't a guest. I asked the clerk why he couldn't check me in despite verifying my reservation. If he couldn't give a satisfactory reason, it was just plain outrageous. Instead of apologizing, the clerk explained his reason.
You came in appropriately dressed. so it's natural to be suspicious.
The clerk's bluntness was shocking. He kept insisting his actions were justified. I couldn't accept this. Judging a guest based on appearance and refusing entry was infuriating, and the hotel's confirmation method was flawed. Isn't it up to the guest to dress how they want? Did this hotel have rules about what guests should wear? As far as I remembered, there weren't any. It was really disappointing. Thinking the hotel had become terribly arrogant over the past 5 years made me sad. No matter how much I pointed out, the clerk refused to accept my argument. Feeling frustrated, the clerk said something outrageous.
Dirty poor people can stay in the hallway. We don't want you in the room.
I was shocked that a supposed professional clerk would say such a thing. How could a luxury hotel allow such absurd treatment? Last time I was here, there were no clerks saying such terrible things. Not only did he refuse to change his attitude, but blaming me for being dirty and poor was unacceptable. And after saying that, he even laughed. This was clearly an insult. Though I couldn't see her face, Laura was surely saddened by these remarks. I regretted ruining the reunion Laura had planned after 5 years. I started to think I should have changed my clothes.
Wow, you're really something. That's hilarious.
To my surprise, Laura laughed louder than the clerk instead of being sad. Her sudden laughter made both the clerk and me freeze with wide eyes. Ignoring our reactions, Laura demanded the clerk to call the manager.
So, this hotel chooses customers based on their looks? That's a novel approach. Could you call the manager, please?
The clerk started to say he couldn't do that, but Laura insisted, saying if he didn't call the manager, she would call the police for the insult. Not wanting to cause trouble, the clerk went to get the manager. While the clerk was gone, Laura muttered softly.
I won't forgive this.
It was clear she was completely furious. I had only seen Laura this angry once before, and the memory still made me shiver. Then the manager appeared in front of us. I wondered how he would handle this, but he was already trembling. Noticing his unusual behavior, I saw the manager's pale face. His gaze was fixed on Laura. Suddenly, he apologized deeply.
I deeply apologize.
Without any explanation, he immediately started apologizing. Unlike the rude clerk, the manager's submissive attitude left me speechless. As I wondered why the manager apologized so quickly, he revealed an unbelievable fact.
I can't believe my lack of training led to such rudeness towards the owner. Please forgive me.
Owner, I had no idea what he meant. Then it hit me, he meant Laura.
What are you thinking? I never said to judge guests based on their appearance and categorize them as poor or rich. And there's no point in asking you. I'll hear from the clerk.
Laura, acting as the owner, was revealing an astonishing truth I didn't know. I was left in shock. The manager could only reply with yes to everything Laura said. The clerk, who had been watching the exchange, turned pale, more like ashen.
How long have you been working here?
Laura mercilessly questioned the clerk, who seemed to age and turn white instantly. Her eyes blazed with intense anger.
Yes, I've been here 5 years.
The arrogant attitude from before had vanished, replaced with nervousness and stammering. My own anger faded as I saw the pitiful state of the clerk. The manager explained on behalf of the clerk, revealing he was a veteran of 5 years. Hearing this, Laura's expression darkened even more.
It's one thing if he were a new hire, but keeping such a person for so long shows a severe staffing issue. Didn't shake off the previous owner's training methods, I see. I thought I made it clear in meetings to enforce the new policies with all employees.
Laura's criticism extended to the manager as well, but her focus remained on the clerk. The manager tried to answer Laura's questions from the side. If someone had seen this scene without context, they would be completely confused about who was talking to whom.
We've been continuing education, but it seems it hasn't fully taken root.
Hearing this, Laura sighed deeply. I still couldn't accept that Laura was the owner of a luxury hotel. I thought it had to be some kind of joke. The Laura I knew was married and living as an ordinary housewife at her husband's family home. But then I noticed she didn't have a ring on her finger, shattering that illusion. I realized I needed to talk to her later. After that, Laura sternly reprimanded the clerk about how he treated me.
My brother works hard in the field just like you. Who do you think you are to assume he's miserable and refuse him a room because you think he's poor? I've never heard of an hotel doing that.
While Laura was right, it was uncomfortable to see both the veteran clerk and the manager kneeling and begging for forgiveness. It almost looked like Laura was bullying the employees. I worried this might be a compliance issue. The veteran clerk apologized to me, but seeing him being scolded by Laura was enough for me, so I didn't push further. However, my leniency seemed to anger Laura even more, and the clerk was suspended for a month. I wondered if I should have been harsher for his sake, but knowing how scary Laura could be when truly angry, I couldn't go further.
Stand up for yourself. If you're working hard and someone complains, you should talk back.
Laura's strong-willed nature is admirable, but she's terrifying when angry. I was reminded of her intimidating side. As an apology from the manager, we were upgraded to a higher classroom. The interior was slightly better, which made me happy.
Just preparing a better room doesn't fix the issue. That's why guests leave. They haven't corrected these problems.
Laura grumbled, clearly upset, but I pretended not to notice. I thought being a business owner must make you see the world more critically. It seemed tough. While I was grateful for the chance to relax for a day, I couldn't help but want to confirm something. I needed to know if Laura was truly the owner. I didn't know what had happened over the past 5 years. All I knew was she had been living at her husband's family home. After we settled into the room and had some small talk, I asked Laura what had happened. Laura explained that her husband's family was wealthy and involved in several businesses. Helping her husband, she discovered the joy of managing a business and started her own ventures. Her husband, having ample funds, let her do as she pleased, which delighted Laura. She first entered the hotel business. Using her experience as a part-time hotel worker, she bought a failing hotel, turned it around, and sold it for a profit. Her husband was pleased, but when Laura wanted to buy a luxury hotel in crisis, he opposed her risky approach. Their differing methods led to their separation and eventual divorce. It was a sad end to their marriage.
I was moved by the hospitality we experienced last time. I couldn't let it disappear, but I realized the management was all about catering to the super rich, and I hated that approach.
Laura said our previous visit had been a lucky exception. Maybe we should have just seen it as a stroke of luck to receive high-class hospitality. She then worked to change the management policy, now focusing on improving customer satisfaction. 5 years is enough time to change someone's circumstances. Laura got divorced and is continuing her business on her own. Her deftness amazes me.
I didn't really need the money. I made a successful sale with the hotel before. I paid back half of what I borrowed from my husband, but I still had plenty left. Do you know, nowadays, you can buy companies and hotels really cheap.
Laura spoke excitedly, but I was confused by what she was saying. It felt like she had moved much further away from where I was. Laura, you've changed. She wasn't the Laura I knew. It was like she had returned from another world. Laura laughed and asked if I was saying she had aged, but I was just stating the truth. After that, Laura and I went to visit our parents' graves. The graves were less than 30 minutes away from the hotel. Laura talked about our parents when they were alive.
When you were born, our family was so happy. Our parents had the biggest smiles. I was so happy, too, that I kept asking to hold you.
Laura spoke gently, saying she wanted me to feel our parents' love. Though Laura always seemed strong to me, she looked vulnerable for the first time. Seeing her unable to hide her loneliness made me realize how much love our parents had given her. I had no memories of them, but I felt grateful for bringing me into this world and letting me meet Laura. Without our parents, I wouldn't have felt how wonderful life could be. After visiting the graves, Laura and I returned to the hotel to relax. The manager frequently checked in to see if everything was fine, but neither Lauren or I had any requests. He probably felt guilty about the earlier incident, but his constant attention made me uncomfortable, and seeing the timid manager made Laura angry again. I wished we could just relax. Then, Laura invited me to help her with her business, and I agreed. As Laura said, getting involved in management was surprisingly enjoyable. Finding joy in the work, I joined Laura in starting a new office, and we began living together. As a business partner, I now wanted to be as strong as Laura.